The curriculum is getting tougher and tougher, and that is not because you want children to learn more and more. It is because you want to filter out children who can't negotiate that curriculum. See, luckily we had done a survey in 2021. It was a phone survey because we could not go into the field. And we already knew that there was a dip in the reading ability, percent children knowing how to read. We didn't know whether now we would go higher or lower. But if your question is directed as whether we had a bias going in, then I think every surveyor who went in without a bias. It wasn't as though ये बच्चा ना कम पढ़ने वाला है, ऐसा नहीं था. And it shows because in some states reading levels just minor have shown an increase, and in many states they have gone down further. So there was no bias going in. And the interesting thing is, so that's true of mathematics also. You will see that in many states math levels have actually shown an improvement. And you have to remember that schools started reopening after March. So there was a 6-month period before the test that the school had opened. You can see in the report today that the proportion of children going to private tutors has gone up significantly. उसमें तो कोई bias की बात नहीं है. So some children have learned in the last 6 months also. And it doesn't take a whole lot of time to learn to read. That's the tragedy of it. That it doesn't take a long time, and yet so many children can't read properly or can't read. So we did not go with a bias. We didn't expect in that sense. But the fear overall, there were two fears expressed.
I think the fear.
Yeah, the two fears that were expressed was one, and there was a lot of it during the pandemic, that children are going to drop out, they are going to go out of school, girls are going to drop out, girls' education will suffer. All that was already there in the media. And that was based on our experience that whenever there is a distress, this girls' education suffers. Children going to school suffers. And so everybody also expected, since schools are closed, children will not learn, will not be able to read. So I'm jumping the gun, I suppose, but when I saw the results, I was elated. There's something interesting that it struck me, and yesterday Mr. Vinit Nair also mentioned it. So if the schools were closed for 2 years, children who went to first grade or who were supposed to go to first standard should not have learned a thing in 2 years. If all the learning is happening because of schools. And then if you say that where 30% children were reading, now there are 24% children reading. So where did the 24% children read? How did they learn to read? That's first part. And second, if the schools, without schools, if 24% can read, then is there a value to this school education? It's a very significant question to ask. I don't want to get there really in that serious, but there is a problem. That reading, and that is not all there is to it. That's not all that is to education. But this is an interesting question. I ask, only 6% drop, 7% drop. So that's good. So the rest can be covered. We think that catching up process, if applied seriously in most of the government schools or any school, should be very easy. According to Pratham's established evidence of learning to read, teaching at the right level method, within 50 days, large number, 70% children conversion happens from nothing, beginners to reading levels, story level readers. So we have lived with a model for over 200 years, from Europe, America to India, where there is a school There's a village community or a whatever community, urban community, and we send the children to school. And the school has teachers, and we insist that the teachers have to be trained teachers. If you are not a trained teacher, you cannot be employed, and so on and so forth. And this goes with governments, with administrators, with NGOs, experts. Everybody wants. But my logic is simple: that when this model of teachers was a teacher-based school, teacher-centric school, some people may not like the word. They want to make education child-centric, but with the teacher. But the teacher is still necessary. Yesterday also in the debate, people talked about centrality of a teacher. Centrality of a person who helps children's learning, I am willing to accept. But I am not sure centrality of a teacher is really valid. Because the children are learning from different sources. We saw that in the pandemic 2 years, there was no school, and children have learned whatever they have learned, then that has happened at home. We know in all middle class schools, middle class homes, mothers, not necessarily fathers, not fathers at all, or in fact, mothers are teaching children all the time. Homework, वगैरह सब करते हैं, and the teachers are giving the homework, and the mothers are explaining, ये ऐसा है, वो ऐसा है. So already there is a hybrid model existing, where there are educated parents, and we know that the proportion of reading children is related to the proportion of educated parents,
which has also gone up.
Which is so that the proportion of schooled parents, especially in government schools, has gone up very high now. So the question is that there are resources, and not only that, the proportion of children going to private tutors is going up, and it is going up uniformly now. पहले ऐसा था कि only private school children were going. Now government school children are going. Now everybody is going to private tutors. Who are these private tutors? They are not trained teachers, but they are helping with homework and whatever. So all these resources, these are resources of education for a child, for a family. They are relying on them. So why not look at it and say, look, there are educational resources, and the teacher can be there. Teacher has to be there. I agree. Somebody who will carry the message and so on. But don't depend on the teacher, and don't blame. Two things you do. You give credit to the teacher and you blame the teacher. If the education is bad, you blame the teacher. If education is good, you will say the teachers must be good. But there is so much more happening, and now there is a bigger teacher. There, first of all, in the 70s, we discovered a teacher called television. And we said children are exposed to a lot of information. Now, we have also noted that the proportion of children or families, rural included, especially rural families that have smartphones, and I suppose good access to internet, reasonable access to internet, has gone to 78%. What does that tell you? And these children at some point or another, for whatever reason, are handling technology. There is so much children are exposed to. How can even the teacher cope with any of those things? The speed with which and the extent to which children are exposed to information, that is affecting them. Good, bad, ugly, everything is happening. And that nature of education is changing completely. We have to understand that. And without that, education that takes this into account treats everything in the community as resources. No. You see, the problem ultimately lies in assessment. And this is again where you can do some statistics checking out. Ultimately, everybody is going to be tested at 10th standard board exam. अभी वो redundant कर दिया, it's not really important, सब लोग 11वीं में जाएंगे वगैरह वगैरह. 12वीं, see, this is a filtration system. ऊपर कौन जाएगा और नीचे कौन रहेगा? That's all that is happening. And you make we call it the over-ambitious curriculum. The curriculum is getting tougher and tougher, and that is not because you want children to learn more and more. It is because you want to filter out children who can't negotiate that curriculum. Language can't be a barrier at all. It depends, like I said, where do you want the children to go? So there is an interesting model. I know about Maharashtra. I don't know about the other places. In Maharashtra, the government schools are called. There's many government schools that are officially made. They call semi-English schools, meaning the teacher, which is what my teachers did when I was in high school. When we couldn't understand what they were saying because of their bad English or our poor understanding, they explained everything in Marathi with English scientific terms. That's called semi-English. So आपको जो समझाना है मैं मराठी में समझाऊँ. The verbs can be well, it depends upon what you are teaching. Can be English or whatever, but it sounds. अभी जो English हो गया, English हो गया है. So why can't that be a language of teaching or instruction? It's a question. It just we have to let go of what we thought earlier कि एक ही language में पढ़ाना हो सकता है. It should be possible because it's the child's understanding that is more important, right? So it's if we treat the language as a barrier, then it's a barrier. See, we have to be solution oriented and not stick to something we call principles. That's the first part. The second part is in the languages. This survey you will see. I think there is a table which shows children who are going to schools. What is the question? Which is not their mother tongue. So, are you going to a school where the medium of instruction is your mother tongue? So, how many percent in India do you think go to schools that are their mother tongue? Just a guess, mathematics. Let me say that 20% children are going to private schools. Now, will it help you?
70.
Actually, the funny part is in most states, including UP, Bihar and so on, Bihar में Jharkhand में 30-40% children are going to schools that are their mother tongue schools. What does that tell you? अगर मेरी mother tongue भोजपुरी है तो हिंदी medium school is not my mother tongue. So language का बड़ा ही interesting सवाल है and we have never dealt with it. ट्राइबल स्कूल्स में लोग बोलते हैं कि बच्चों को फर्स्ट दे हैव टू कम फ्रॉम द ट्राइबल स्कूल टू अ स्टेट स्कूल. मीन ट्राइबल लैंग्वेज देयर होम लैंग्वेज टू अ स्टेट लैंग्वेज. दैट्स अ बिग ट्रांजिशन. एंड देन मेनी ट्राइबल एरियाज आर ऑन बॉर्डर्स. सो मेरी लैंग्वेज तेलुगु है कि मराठी है ये समझने में आधा स्कूलिंग मेरा खत्म हो जाता है. सो आई थिंक वी हैव टू डील विद द लैंग्वेज इशू डिफरेंटली. बट देन somehow people survive and that is a barrier that we do not understand कि इसका सवाल का जवाब कैसे देना. ट्रेडिशन. स्कूल में जाना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है, ये भी हो सकता है. बिहार इफ यू सी लो नंबर ऑफ प्राइवेट स्कूल्स. ओके, वेरी वेरी लो. अभी थोड़ा ज़्यादा बड़ा था बट अभी कम हो गया. But tutors are very high. Private tutors are very high. So you don't have to go to school. You can go to a tutor. वो स्कूल में गया है, स्कूल में ही गया है. ये भी स्कूल है, वो भी स्कूल है. ये तो ट्रेडिशन बन गया है कि जाएगा तो ठीक है. स्कूल अटेंड करने की जरूरत है. There's a lot to do with this tradition कि सवेरे उठ के स्कूल जाओ, सवेरे उठ के ट्यूटर के पास जाओ, सवेरे उठ के पानी में खेलने के लिए जाओ. Whatever it is. So it's not important. It has to be a social habit to send children to school. So UP also the same way, private schools and tutors. So I don't know, we'll have to do a study of why this is so. But if you see the division, southern states right up to Maharashtra, all very very high attendance, 80-90%. Very high attendance. 90% is the highest we can get, 90-92%. But eastern corridor में जाओ जहाँ ट्यूशन ज़्यादा है, attendance starts dropping. So there's a correlation between tuitions and attendance. I wouldn't call anything online learning. There are very little online learning with computers and so on. With smartphones and all that, there was no online learning as such. People are using technology. WhatsApp पे PDF भेज दिया, उसको पढ़ के कुछ करने की कोशिश की. And you will find in the data last year, even this year, smartphones were not always available for children to learn. So there was that online learning is very, very small percentage. That's first thing. Did it affect concentration in learning? I don't know. Anecdotally, I have sample of one granddaughter who was completely bored on online learning, and maybe with some others also. What is interesting is they learned a lot about technology. वही तो मैं बोल रहा था कि they've learned a lot about technology, which we did not expect. Tablets and all these are not just one-way communicators of knowledge. वो नहीं है. They are connectors, and they are the technology that children should handle. So a large part of our program is about, मतलब लिख के भेजो बोलेंगे तो लिखेंगे नहीं. But we ask children to make videos, they make videos. जो आपने काम किया उसका वीडियो इंस्टा पे रील बना के भेज दिया. कितने लोगों को आ रहा है? I mean, you forget that is a skill of the modern society.